Jake is in the snake. Jake is in the snake.
One of wrestling's greatest mysteries. Why wasn't the Gobbledygooker a bigger gimmick? And you know, why did
he was a future tag team champion with the Red Rooster.
Why did Hello and a very warm welcome back to the Gimme Wrestling Podcast. My name is Dom and that is
Anthony.
Oh, Anthony is his girlfriend, he calls him. Oh, sweet. How you doing, man?
Hello. I'm alright. Hello. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Well, today what are we looking at, Dom?
What the fuck are we looking at today? Survivor Series 1990 with the commentators Roddy Piper and Gorilla, which was surprisingly better than last time.
A lot better than not perfect. I think Roddy again drawn out over a long time is a bit too much.
Bit of a task,
but it was much better than it was in the last one.
Some people say that about me. It's good in small doses. But like long term,
intense,
long drawn out. It gets pretty intense. It gets too much for some people. And too much for some people, man.
Apparently so, dude. You're like Hulk Hogan on steroids.
Hulk Hogan on steroids.
Yeah.
What's Hulk Hogan on steroids like?
Didn't you watch any of his wrestling in the 80s and 90s?
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Right, so today's pay-per-view features the debut of one of the most important wrestlers in the history of wrestling in the WWF.
The Gobbledygooker.
The Gobbledygooker, yes. You know, I actually set that one up for you.
I can't even carry on.
It's such a funny segment, but we will talk about the Gobbledygooker as well as The Undertaker, as well as a first time for other wrestlers. And we'll go into a bit of the history of the wrestlers when we get to them. And we have 5 4 versus 4 matches in this, and then a 3 versus 5 match.
Classic Survivor Series decency.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's good. There's some good matches on this, and some not so good matches, and some exciting things to talk about. So, are we ready to rock?
I am good. I've just had I've got a sip of tea from my Give Me a Whole Yeah mug.
Because we are English, and tea must be drunk.
And that you can buy these from our Redbubble store or our Patreon, which you can directly support us, patreon.com/Give Me a Whole Yeah. We need you to help us do this, because if we don't do this, then I do naughty things to him and he doesn't like it. So
I just can't afford it anymore.
So as real and as intense as this look is in my eyes, I'm looking at you guys and I'm asking you to help us continue to do this, so that you can hear about wrestling legends like the Gobbledygooker.
Absolutely.
Gobbledygooker. There's a weird. People have always said it really weird over time. The Gobbledygooker, the Gobbledygooker, or the Gooker.
Gooker, yeah.
Gobbledygooker.
Yeah. Obviously, one of the I think Pro Wrestling Illustrated ended up having the Gooker Award, which was based on Gobbledygooker Award, based on horrific debuts or horrific things that happen in wrestling, which is what we're going to talk about. So first we get a rundown of the wrestlers who are fighting tonight, including all the team splits, the nice classic...
They all had team names as well, that was nice.
They did, and there was one team name that I thought was very clever, but we'll get into that when we get into it. We see that the egg is about to hatch. Now, the Gobbledygooker, although it's a massive joke in wrestling...
You're not supposed to know it's the Gobbledygooker yet.
Was a very big thing. Like the build-up to Survivor Series was about this egg going to hatch. It was really serious. This is going to be a big moment for wrestling.
What's in the egg?
Which ended up absolutely flopping. But Roddy references George Bush and Saddam Hussein. There was a lot of that. The war in the Gulf had broken out, hadn't it? That's I think at this point.
Very sensitive time, which was obviously WWE were totally on top of it with their very sensitive Sergeant Slaughter gimmick.
Very sensitive Iraqi sympathizer. And the WWF have always worked with troops, haven't they? They have the tribute to the troop shows nowadays.
One of their biggest audiences, actually, in terms of demographic. Just a lot of.
I imagine it is, yeah. And they go out there and they perform for them, and that's great. That's great that they support the troops, no matter what you think of the army. Then we have an interview with the Ultimate Warriors. So the first event has the Ultimate Warrior in it, which is a little bit weird, but we'll go into it. Go on, do your press slam. Hey! Very good, very good. Now
Did you
let's.
like that?
Yeah, I did like that. Yeah. So we have an interview with the Ultimate Warriors, with Warrior pulling so many faces from the start. Like, he had his mouth open like the whole way through. How do you keep your mouth open for that long and not like get complete lockjaw?
Because he's the Ultimate Warrior.
I bet he was good at other things as well.
Yeah.
He was really against homosexuals, you know, like later on in his life.
I thought you were talking about like.
No, that's no, I was making a sexual
Oh
reference.
right, you were talking about blowjobs.
I was, yes.
Oh, okay. Was he really? Was he really? Oh.
Yeah, he had a really bad like interview. It's on YouTube where he's like really against homosexuals and stuff like that.
Well, that's.
And apparently he later on, after, because they did the whole Warrior Award and that at Hall of Fame, and it was like, oh, he changed his opinions later on in life. I don't think he probably ever did. No, there's some nasty stuff about Warrior. He's not the superhero that we all love.
Nobody is, as we're finding out more and more these days.
Absolutely.
Well, here at the Gay Podcast, we are very much for and in support of LGBTQ
absolutely, man.
Organisations, and we would actively encourage anybody to get involved with us and to give us some advice and support. If we can support you guys in anything, we're looking to get involved with more organisations and collaborate where possible, so please support
Hit
us.
Up, man.
We'll support you.
Give us a shout. Yeah, you can't keep your mouth open for that long as Warrior did.
Well, you might be able to, because I know you're good at some things.
No, man, I'd get lockjaw. I really would. Right, so the first match is the Warriors. So we have Animal and Hawk from Legion of Doom making the pay-per-view debut with the Texas Tornado and the Ultimate Warrior versus the Perfect Team, Axe, Crush and Smash from Demolition, and Mr. Perfect with Bobby Heenan and Fuji. What a rush. So, as we like to do on this podcast, if we have a new team or individual entering, we like to go into a bit of detail of them.
Oh, this is like the most detail I've ever gone into with a team, so I apologise in advance.
Enjoy
okay,
it, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so the LOD, Legion of Doom, started off in the early 80s at Georgia Championship Wrestling. They were then known as the Road Warriors and were managed by a very familiar face to today's NXT crowd, Paul Ellering, who manages the Authors of Pain, of course. They won the titles in that company on their debut match.
Was this WCCW?
GCW. So
Jim Crockett.
Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. And they basically would win that title loads more times over the years before they went on to win the AWA Championships, which is American Wrestling Association. And they sort of did that a bunch of times through 84 to 86 before going for a nice run in Japan, leading up to time with WCW.
WCCW.
Oh, yeah. So 87. A highlight for that run for that team was winning the NWA 6-man tag team championships with Dusty Rhodes before turning heel and attacking Dusty and basically vacating those fantastic 3-person tag team championships, which I think is a solid idea and should be brought back.
I agree. I think the 3-person team is really dynamic.
Like a stable tag team. So yeah, unfortunately the titles were abandoned shortly after that. Before it could really take off, Vince McMahon kind of poached the Road Warriors to go into WWF or WWE in the early 90s, but they kind of ditched the Road Warrior gimmick. They were the Road Warriors throughout that whole time. That's how the Legion of Doom thing came out. They had a nice run. They won the tag team titles from the Nasty Boys, and then kind of left. They were never in. You pointed this out. They were never in WWE for like a really long period of time.
There wasn't. No, I was surprised when I was watching the pay-per-view.
They had a lot of bit runs. Another highlight for the team was in night 2. Hawk went to New Japan Pro Wrestling and formed a tag team with Kensuke Sasaki, who became the Hellraisers. So it was kind of an adaptation of Legion of Doom, and then that was while Animal was recovering from a shoulder injury. This team in Japan would come back later on in their career as well, which is most fascinating. I love the fact that there's such a great legacy with Legion of Doom. Such a great.
There was big all over. Oh yeah. And before they entered the WWF, they were massive.
Oh yeah, incredible. So these guys won the IWGP tag titles. When Animal returned, they were collectively known as the Road Warriors. And basically had they were a 3-man team, and they were kind of dominant in Japan for a while before the Hawkenheimer went to WCW to have again another brief run, feuds with Steiner Brothers and Harlem Heat before leaving over a contract dispute with Eric Bischoff, where Bischoff allegedly, although he claims to not remember this, promised Legion of Doom the second highest paid contract in the company for the pair of them.
And that's sort of how big there was and how iconic it was. I was talking briefly earlier about to you about it. They inspired so many rip-offs, and when we look at the Powers of Pain, they were basically a rip-off of the Road Warriors.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was WWF. Well, no, the Powers of Pain were fighting outside the WWF. Yeah. But in the WWF, their answer to Legion of Doom, or to get something similar, was Demolition.
Yeah, and that was the very first team they put, or Vince McMahon put them against.
Absolutely, yeah.
In WWE. It was a weird next sort of phase of their career, and this is when I kind of came into, I'd been watching wrestling for a few years before that, kind of when Yokozuna was around, but basically this time, and around sort of later on in '97, when I was kind of watching it weekly, getting my nana to tape, Raws and pay-per-views and stuff. In '97, they came back and they feuded with the Hart Foundation with some good matches. They won the tag titles against the Godwins, only to lose their titles to a newly formed team of Billy Gunn and the Road Dogg. The New Age Outlaws.
New Age Outlaws, yeah.
Yeah, the pair ended up fighting after. So it was kind of like the first tease of on WWE TV anyway, of Hawk and Animal breaking up. Nothing came of it, and that was the last time they were seen on TV. Was them two fighting after they failed to regain the titles. They were repackaged and brought back a few months later as LOD 2000 in a kind of a very weird, half-assed. Didn't look that great. They had Sunny as a manager.
Yes,
which was odd.
Sunny looked great.
Yeah, she doesn't.
Not necessarily right for Legion of Doom.
Yeah, no, then that didn't work out, and then they had Droz come in, and he was a member of Legion of Doom during this whole very awkward gimmick, and I remember watching it being, feeling very awkward. McMahon would
you say it made you want to vomit?
Well, that actually is actually not what I'm talking about. The Droz gimmick of him. If you watch Beyond the Ring, there's a very odd kind of job interview between Vince McMahon and Droz during this time, and because he's known for puking, and he was known as an American footballer, and he would puke while on the field and during promos and stuff. Vince McMahon's like telling him to puke in this bin, and that's how he was going to be called Puke. But then they put him with Legion of Doom after a brief. I think he had a brief run as like a almost like a hillbilly hick type gimmick, and then joined the Legion of Doom, and they had this really awkward kind of gimmick where they were playing on Hawk's drug and alcohol addictions,
really bad story.
And Droz was supposed to be the replacement.
He was,
and he was kind of trying to turn Animal against him, and then Hawk had this horrible kind of fake suicide attempt off the Titantron, and I remember watching that. And but I it felt real, but apparently it was all the work, and they both vetoed it, and so it was dropped. Hawk and Animal felt very uncomfortable, so they dropped it.
So they'd have him show up like drunk and unable to perform, but that was mirroring the real life problems that Hawk was going through, which is it's too much. Yeah,
well, at the time, certainly at that time, even though the Attitude Era, it was very intense.
They were trying to be raw and they were trying to be edgy, but bringing in someone else's alcohol addiction and drug addiction into programming when they're actually suffering through that, that's not supportive.
No, I think it kind of ended their momentum. They had a couple more appearances, but nothing, no great angles. And then they finished up that tenure. They made another very quick return in 2003 to face RVD and Kane, who were then the tag team champions, but they thought that they were going to get a contract out of it, and that it didn't really work out. And again, another sad kind of run for them. And even worse was that at that time, it was 5 months prior
to Hawk
passing away.
Which heart attack, wasn't it?
Yeah. Animal had a brief run as well in 2005, coming back, and they paired him with this Heidenreich. Now, I think they had WWE had a lot of hopes in Heidenreich, but they were never really fully realised, so they kind of put him with Animal as kind of a new LOD. which was again didn't really work as well as I think anybody wanted it to. They actually won the tag team titles. I think mainly because
Heidenreich was putting over Heidenreich.
Yeah, and Animal also made a dedication to that specific match. It was against Morrison and Mercury, who were then known as M&M.
Right.
Joey Mercury, of course, who works WWE now, and John Morrison, who is doing very successful on the
indie scenes at the minute. Yeah.
John Morrison, of course, is one of those people around, apart from Shelton Benjamin, who's now back, that I'd like to see back in WWE.
Agreed.
So yeah, they won the tags, and Animal dedicated that performance to Hawk, and then of course they went and won it. It wasn't a great run for them as a team. Heidenreich got released first, and then a few months later, after kind of Animal had a stint as just the Road Warrior, he was just being billed as...
That was his original... It was originally Animal that was called the Road Warrior before it was put together by Paul Ellering. So he went back to that, did that for a few months, then got released, then went back to Japan and reunited with his former partner Sasaki again. Remember, talked about the Hellraisers. Yep.
And this time they were called the Hell Warriors, and that was kind of his Animal's last run as a performer.
Wasn't he in TNA fairly recently, 2015?
They had a very brief. They had a couple of episodes in TNA.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really, like I said.
Because it was also part of the Heath Slater thing where they all go through and squash Heath Slater, and then that big battle royale.
The gimmick battle royals and stuff like that. So he did, but he did pop back in quite a bit. But in terms of major developments,
nothing
too great before the Hall of Fame induction.
Well, I always find out...
Which they were inducted to with Ellering as well.
Yes, but obviously Hawk had passed away by that point as well. I think it's interesting because they seem to have such a lasting impression, and a lot of that was based on the look. I mean, in terms of what their impact is on the pay-per-views that we're reviewing, there's not that many with them in. But they was the ones that inspired everything else that came along. And the Road Warrior gimmick was iconic, which they took from Mad Max 2, which was the big movie of the 80s with Mel Gibson. And that sort of look. So, and another little fact, do you know who Animal's brother is?
Yeah, John Laurinaitis.
John Laurinaitis, yeah. Who's in WWF still, or WWE at the minute. In talent relations, is he?
Yeah, executive vice president.
I think he's dating Nikki Bella's mother as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Executive vice president of talent relations. He was on screen. I'm not entirely sure if that's a gimmick, but he was on screen. That was his on-screen persona for a while. He was hated, around when CM Punk was...
The authority figure.
Yeah. He was.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting team. And I think also, if you look back at video games, they're from that sort of period, they were quite iconic within that, you know. It's always surprising to me how iconic they were, but how little they actually show up in our sort of what we'll be covering in the pay-per-views. Compared to someone like Demolition, who was very prominent and is not in the Hall of Fame.
Don't have the same legacy,
No, not at all. And that's partly because of the legacy outside of the WWF, which they're willing to acknowledge nowadays. So let's go into the match a little bit. So Texas Tornado is, unless you've got anything else to add.
No, that's fine.
No, that's cool. Texas Tornado is still the Intercontinental Champion at this point, and Warrior is the Heavyweight Champion. So in this first match, we have the Intercontinental Champion and the Heavyweight Champion versus Demolition and Mr. Perfect. Now, Mr. Perfect and Texas Tornado had a little bit of a story going in.
Yeah, it was.
But Warrior, I mean,
it was odd, wasn't it? It was odd to have them, especially for this time.
Really weird.
We've never had this kind of dynamic at the beginning of a pay-per-view where you've got these huge personalities. Such an early stage,
and I think it's important to the history of the pay-per-views. I don't think they had much faith in Warrior.
No, we've talked about this.
And I think that this, I get why Perfect and Tornado would be at each other, but why install Warrior into this?
Yeah,
and why have it as the first match? Warrior should have been he was one of the stars. I mean, I understand starting a pay-per-view strong. Again, though, this wasn't starting the pay-per-view strong because it wasn't that great a match, apart from a few moments in it. So Animal starts off with Smash, but when Perfect comes in, it becomes all the faces attacking Perfect, basically. Warrior comes in and quickly eliminates Axe. So this is what we were talking about before, with Axe wanting to cut down. Axe was having health issues at the time.
Yeah, and they were trying to have Crush come in.
Try and have Crush to come in to take over, which he eventually did. The health issues that Axe was suffering from, though, I did a little bit of research into this, and it wasn't as bad as they thought. What it was an allergic reaction to some shellfish that he had in Japan.
Really?
Yeah, man. So him sort of struggling health-wise was all from this allergic reaction.
He wanted. I think he thought he was days with numbers. I think he wanted a back.
And it was all because of an allergic reaction to some shellfish in Japan, which Axe said in an interview, I think, in about 2007.
Yeah, he wanted a backstage position, but it never really worked out for him.
No, which is a shame. I thought Axe was really good, actually. I thought he was the better of the two of Smash. Who do you think from Demolition? I preferred Axe.
I prefer Smash.
Did you? Right, fair enough. So Hawk gets tagged against Perfect and the crowd gets excited again. Who was your favourite, Hawk or Animal?
Hawk, because I thought it was just a much more interesting performer. You know how in society we're drawn to the more kind of chaotic performers. Hawk, and around that time Brian Pillman and those types of and Mankind. You know, even though it was a persona, Mankind at that time, I was always drawn to a more kind of chaotic character, and Hawk certainly had that. He was the wilder one, I think.
We'll have to keep an eye out on it. I think Animal might have been the better wrestler.
Oh, yeah.
But Hawk, he was great at cutting promos. He'd always have the final word in the promos. So when you sort of go into that, it'd be interesting to sort of keep an eye on that, I think, and sort of see how they're doing in other matches.
Yeah, monitor it,
So we see a lot of calling in the ring. I don't know why, or it's something went wrong with a tag or something somewhere, and the whole match didn't flow very well because of this. I don't know exactly what was going on, but it wasn't great. Hawk nearly pins Smash, but Crush saves him, leading to Animal and Crush coming into the ring. The Legion of Doom and Demolition are both disqualified for fighting in the ring. Why did that happen? There was so many bending of rules in this pay-per-view, right? There was 2 legal men in the ring, 2 other men come in and fight, and all of them was disqualified.
That doesn't happen these days. It didn't really happen those days. No. Again, it's the odd kind of face-heel dynamics that
it's weird, isn't it?
Come to play in the 80s,
and then just before the bell rung, Hawk kicks the referee as well, which he completely no-sells.
Yeah.
It was weird, man, really weird. So then we've got left in the ring, Warrior, which is a mix between Tornado and Warrior, or perhaps just a villain for Super Mario.
Yeah, I know. I literally was like, I'm pretty sure that's that.
So we have Warrior and Tornado versus Mr. Perfect, and the Tornado wants Perfect in. Ultimate Warrior's in the ring, and he comes and asks for the tag. The wrestling in the ring picks up a little bit here when we have Tornado and Perfect. The two seem to have good chemistry together. And you could also tell that they've been working a lot together. Probably during the house shows in this period, due to the last match, they'd been working a lot together. Both very talented wrestlers, obviously. There's no discussion about that. Heenan tries to refresh Perfect, but Warrior throws him over the crowd barrier. Heenan taking another massive bump on the concrete.
That was all right.
He took so many bumps from Warrior.
Yeah.
Poor Heenan,
I think they just hate it. I think there was genuinely some animosity between the two as well.
I'd have animosity if I was letting Warrior do stuff.
I'm sure there's an interview where Heenan's like, he had no time for the Warriors in-ring technique.
No, well, it wasn't great, and we know that. Perfect Plex ends the Tornado, so the Texas Tornado is out. Nice to see Mr. Perfect getting the win here. So we're left with Ultimate Warrior versus Mr. Perfect. Mr. Perfect gets his Perfect Plex on the Ultimate Warrior again, and Warrior kicks out.
Because Warrior can't sell a move, because...
So Perfect dominates Warrior for quite a while.
As soon as we get out... The sooner we get out of the early 90s, the better, man.
I know, man. If you think this is bad, you wait,
Post 95.
There's some really bad stuff, 94, 95, some really...
oh, man, I was there, and it's not as bad as this.
Wait until you watch it again. So Perfect dominates Warrior for quite a while, leaving Perfect to do all the work, but this actually helped build up Warrior's comeback. Again, the sign of a great wrestler is when they can help build up the person that they're fighting against off. And it is good when Warrior overcomes it, even though it's just a clothesline and a splash and a pin. It worked quite well. I wonder if so Warrior ends up winning the match. I wonder partly if they'd put Warrior on first so that he could refresh himself before the final match, because the winner of each of these Survivor Series matches is going to be put in a match at the end of the pay-per-view for an Ultimate Survivor match. Yeah, I mean, it was good towards the end where Perfect was sort of in control, but that was about it, really.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Yeah. And Tornado was good, but
the Warrior has his dominating moments, and Texas Tornado was probably the best performance in terms of a wrestling showcase. It was nice to see Legion of Doom.
It was nice to see, but they didn't really do enough in the match to make a massive
kind of
impression.
A standard iffy start, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Mr. Perfect though.
So they didn't make the impression in the pay-per-view, unlike the person that debuted in the next match, who made a fantastic impression during his match. So next we had an interview with $1 Million Man and his big surprise. He says, only the strong will survive tonight. Again, we see another example of Gorilla here on commentary and how it was working so well, having Gorilla back as opposed to Vince. It's a shame that it couldn't have lasted longer with Gorilla. I think Vince should have stayed away from that microphone as much as possible.
So, but who was going to tell him?
Yeah, well, you can't tell Vince, can you? The next match is the Dream Team. So Dusty Rhodes, Coco Beware, and the Hart Foundation, which was Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart, versus the $1 Million Team, the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, Honky Tonk Man and Greg Valentine, who were as the Rhythm and Blues at this point.
Yeah, terrible team. Sorry.
And The Undertaker. The Undertaker. Is that your Undertaker impression? Great, man. I love it. Ding. So we have a lot of managers in this as well.
Just do the tongue thing there.
Oh, you've got to do your eyes as well. You're just squinting.
Can't
you roll your eyes back?
You do that. You look like you're jizzing.
I am. So the managers in this match is Jimmy Hart, Virgil, and The Undertaker's first manager, Brother Love, not Paul Bearer. Have you listened to Bruce Pritchard's wrestling podcast recently?
No.
Really good stuff on it, man.
Voice.
Oh no, he's
sorry, Bruce.
Really good.
I mean, these
really
are the kind
good.
of people we should be applauding and championing.
You should definitely check out his podcast. It's like the 3-hour-long podcast about one pay-per-view. Like really good stories from inside the WWF. I'm really enjoying them at the minute.
Cool.
So let's talk a little bit about The Undertaker.
This was yours, right?
This was mine, man.
Thank fuck for that, because I was literally, you were looking at me and I'm like,
So, The Undertaker, Mark Calloway, made his wrestling debut in 1984 for WCCW as Texas Red. Good name. His first match was against Bruder Brosey, which is lost. I'm not going into the future of The Undertaker because there's way too much to talk about. I'm looking at prior to WWF. Okay. His first match in the ring was against Bruiser Brody, which he lost. There we go. He left WCCW and joined CWA until that was bought by Jerry Jarrett and it became WCWA as a merger of the two. While he was there, he won the WCWA Texas Heavyweight Championship as The Punisher. He had so many gimmick names, The Undertaker, before he come in, yeah. So Bruce Pritchard had pushed for Calloway to join the WWF, and on talking to Vince McMahon into going to watch him, which Vince was quite reluctant about, Calloway had to perform that night, but he had a dislocated hip. And he went out, and because he knew that Vince McMahon was performing, he went out and performed with a dislocated hip. And Vince wasn't that impressed. Right, so all this crap about Vince being like the Undertaker's his greatest nowadays The Undertaker's his greatest creation, actually he nearly never hired him, and it was Bruce Pritchard again that said to him, go meet the guy, he's a really nice guy, let's go talk to him. Vince and Calloway met up, both really got on, and that's basically why he came to WWF, which is mental.
Vince doesn't get on with anybody, so
no, exactly. He debuted as Kane the Undertaker in this pay-per-view. Later on, not much later on, the Kane name was dropped until another wrestler became.
Was he referenced as Kane the Undertaker here?
In this pay-per-view, yes, I believe it was. Yeah, Kane the Undertaker.
I didn't notice it. I guess it's kind of force of.
Yeah. No, Kane the Undertaker, and obviously the Kane name would eventually be given to Isaac Yankem.
Isaac Yankem or Mark. Was it Mark? Not. Was Kane's
Real life name, I don't
know. Glenn Jacobs. Glenn Jacobs. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm thinking Mark Jacobs. No.
No.
Glenn Jacobs.
So that name, the Kane name, was eventually given to his brother in kayfabe. He'd won several matches in his career. I'll just talk a little bit about his career. We all know about the streak. We all know.
Why don't you tell us all about the streak?
The streak.
I'm kidding. That'll be.
Go on then. Who was Undertaker's first WrestleMania opponent?
I know this one. It's the guy in the bodysuit. Wait. What the hell?
I'm waiting for you to get it wrong because I know you're wrong.
It's the guy in the bodysuit.
It's not. With
Jimmy
Snuka. No, Gonzalez was like 94, 95. That was like the fourth or fifth.
Fine, educate me. Go on.
I'm educating you. I'm saying I'm not talking about the streak, and then you're saying, well, you talk about the streak.
No, I was being sarcastic because we've only got like not that much time.
not enough time, no. So he's won several Match of the Years from Pro Wrestling Illustrated, including his match. So these are the 4 matches. The match with Mankind in 1997, Hell in a Cell, which is still one of my favourite matches of all time, and a great match to show to non-wrestling fans and say, come on, you said this isn't real.
Yeah.
That guy's tooth is in his nose. You're saying that's not real. And then the 2 matches with WrestleMania were both voted Match of the Years, as well as Triple H and the Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania.
Was one of them Michaels and Undertaker? No?
Two Michaels and Undertakers. Both the WrestleMania matches were both.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, incredible matches. Undertaker has never tapped out of a submission hold.
Neither has Mankind.
Hasn't he?
Not in a WWE ring.
I never knew that. Has he tapped out in other?
I'm not 100% sure. Maybe in TNA.
We'll have to look at that.
Someone let me know.
Against Sting? Did he not tap out against Sting?
What, Mick Foley?
Yeah. He had a match in TNA with Sting.
Maybe, yeah. But there was in WWE, it was because he came very close against Ken Shamrock.
Oh, right,
but
okay.
he used the mandible claw on himself, so he passed out. But he didn't.
So, right, okay, cool.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a massive Mankind fan. And I used to love the fact that he could take so much pain and be like, I used to love it. So, so I didn't know he's never tapped out.
No, never tapped out into a submission hold. It's the fact I've got. He also has a fear of. What's his fear, Dom? Cucumbers. Paul Bearer apparently said that he has a real life fear of cucumbers. A bit like your real life fear of cheese. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We're moving on. He's the judge for the Wrestlers' Court, which is the backstage with wrestlers dealing with issues that happen in the ring, and the sentences are generally to buy beer or Jack Daniels, which is my sort of sentence. And in 1994, he won 82 out of 84 matches in the ring, which is a pretty good run, man.
Yeah,
pretty good run. So there's a little bit about the Undertaker. Like you can talk about the rest of his career. It's still probably going to go on further now, but we'll do that as we sort of get to it. You know,
I would say it's his last year, but it's.
I don't know. I think he could come back in a manager capacity.
Manager capacity.
Yes.
You'd ruin it.
No. He's a trainer for Finn Balor. Boom.
Yeah, but not on
training
screen.
The backside. No. Something. I don't know. Anyway,
back behind the curtain.
No. I think something on screen.
How
he's going to transfer the dark side to Finn Balor.
And what happens to him now then?
What happens to who? Finn Balor?
No, the Undertaker.
The Undertaker? Oh, he just fades away. Goes and watches some baseball. I don't know. He likes baseball in real life.
But you said that
he was actually a baseball player.
You said he'd become a manager.
Yeah, not like a manager, like an on-screen trainer or something.
But then he fades away after he passes the darkness.
Yeah, that's fine. He needs to retire gently.
I just said that.
So the faces make their way to the ring. The Harts are wearing the jackets again that we mentioned in the next one. Jim Neidhart was wearing like a plastic pink condom or something on his head.
Yeah, like a
really weird,
like a do-rag. But,
is that what it is? A do-rag?
Yeah, if it's plastic, no, like they used to have the bandanas, didn't they?
Yeah. It looks like a condom. We talked a little bit about where Bret Hart got the whole monkey thing. We talked about that last episode, didn't we? Yeah, Bret wants to dedicate the match to Dean Hart. Dean Hart was Bret Hart's brother, who has died about 2 weeks, I think, before Survivor Series, which is really sad. When Ted DiBiase gets in the ring, he introduces The Undertaker with his manager, and the first time we hear that music, the iconic music of The Undertaker, and the resident WWF dead man enters the ring. And people look scared, man.
Yeah, he looks. I mean, he mastered scary and intimidating later on in his career, but it was a good start.
Absolutely, the crowd looked stunned by him. They didn't know how to take him. Yeah, I think, and that was great. You know, the crowd knew how to react to the Gobbledygooker later on. You know,
indeed, yeah.
So Undertaker starts in the ring with Bret Hart and absolutely dominates Bret. Bret had a really good showing at this show. Actually, there was an interesting move that he did where it was. He'd thrown him into the ropes and he'd sort of grabbed his throat and slammed him down. It wasn't a choke slam per se; it was like a choke throw type thing. Yeah. But it was really nice.
Very, very frightening. This kind of unstoppable force that you could, like a zombie. Yeah, it was like a zombie.
He was, yeah.
It was, it was a better zombie than the one that appeared in ECW years and years later.
Bret Hart tags in Neidhart. Neidhart's shoulder tackle has no effect on The Undertaker. That was sort of Neidhart's play, wasn't it? Because of his football background. And then he ends up getting slammed, so he quickly tags Coco in. Coco comes in and is thrown straight into the ropes. And at this point, we see our very first tombstone. Yeah. Bit of an awkward camera angle. Yeah. And it looked like it probably hurt Coco's head.
Oh, it looked bad.
It did look a bit nasty, yeah. And his legs sort of get hung up on the rope, so it looks a bit messy as Undertaker turns around. But our very first tombstone, man. Yeah. That's exciting.
Brennan.
Coco, obviously, out of the match. Goodbye.
See you, buddy.
See you, Coco. Bret's back in, and Bret clotheslined The Undertaker with Undertaker hardly selling it. But he does look infuriated, and he slowly reaches out to tag whoever was stood down. It was Greg the Hammer Valentine who takes the tag. But his stare never leaves Bret at this time. And it looked so intimidating. It looked excellent, you know, and that's how you sell a monster. Do you know this whole sort of no sell that they'd all do? That was actually a really good no sell. You could see the intensity that, although he no sold it, it hurt him. And here we go. I'm going out now. Really excellent. What an incredible introduction for The Undertaker that was. Absolutely incredible. And it's so exciting to watch the stuff back. Yeah. I highly advise you watch it. I'll post a few days ago, I posted a link on the Facebook page on it. Yeah, that's how well he did to get that over, because it could have been such a cartoony character.
Yeah, massively. It could have been like the Gobbledygooker man.
It could have been, absolutely, and we'll talk about that later. That was such a good entrance, to the point where it was chilling. It was excellent, and that wasn't the best that the Undertaker would get at all. That's incredible. That's exciting, man. You know, it's an exciting part of these pay-per-views that I can't wait to get into. Dusty enters against Greg the Hammer Valentine. Obviously, this was supposed to be Dusty's match against Ted DiBiase, leading on from him taking Sapphire.
It was a nice little feud, you know.
Yeah, it was okay. I'd rather it was Rude, but Rude's gone now. The heels are very much on top in this match all the way through. Anvil takes out Honky Tonk Man with a big power slam, which was good. Eventually, Dusty and Ted DiBiase end in the ring, and that's the two that the crowd want to see. Eventually, DiBiase pins Neidhart. Damn.
Yeah, that was pretty shit.
It was. Undertaker pins Dusty after a big axe handle from the top rope. Brother Love starts attacking Dusty. Dusty eventually gets the advantage and starts attacking Brother Love up the ramp. At this point,
the Undertaker's like,
well, I'm sure
it goes
Undertaker
with the mind control thing. It goes with the mind control thing that I always liked at this time, where you could always control the Undertaker. The idea was he was just kind of...
Oh no, I get that, and I love that. I do love the fact that this dead man has a weakness, and that's his manager.
You could control him.
Or his urn. But I'm pretty certain that Undertaker had to tag on Greg. So Undertaker wasn't the legal man. So Undertaker goes to save Brother Love, but then gets counted out or disqualified or something. So Undertaker shouldn't really have left the match. He should have been left in. But I suppose from a business point of view, they probably didn't know how the crowd was going to take to Undertaker.
I mean, they was probably being a bit cautious, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Bret Hart reverses a figure of 4 leg lock and takes out Greg the Hammer Valentine. And then we get Bret and DiBiase in the ring. Bret did some great work in this match.
This was a nice showing as well.
A really nice showing.
DiBiase and Bret, man,
it's great. Yeah.
Again, later on if that had happened, DiBiase versus Bret Hart.
Yeah, great. It was great here. And Bret was getting better in the ring at this point and really starting to become a singles competitor. Bret Hart did a high crossbody over the top rope to DiBiase, which looked great. You know, nice long drop there. Both Bret and DiBiase did excellent work in the ring. A lot of near falls, and Bret is dominating DiBiase as DiBiase did so well at selling. And it was all fast paced, which was great. Bret eventually went for the crossbody on Ted DiBiase, but Ted DiBiase reverses it and ends up getting the pin himself. Bret looked incredible in this match.
Fantastic.
Really good.
You know, again, it just goes to show the rise of Bret Hart this time.
And what a great match to go back and watch, man. Like, Bret Hart doing really well. Undertaker's debut. I mean, it's fun to go and watch that match. It's fun, so go and watch it. Jake is in the snake. Jake is in the snake.
Jake is in the
snake. Is in the shower with Jimmy Snuka and the Rockers. Why was Jake always in the shower? He's in the shower. He's in the shower all the time.
He's in the shower with the Rockers. Is he?
Yeah, there was. I tell you what, this team: Jake the Snake, Jimmy Snuka, and the Rockers. How many drugs were being passed around this shower cubicle? Yeah. His snake obviously likes it in the shower, and everyone else had to join him. Kinky. I don't get why we always have images of Jake the Snake in the shower.
Jake and the Snake in the shower with the Rockers and Jimmy Snake.
That's how I wrote it down, man. Talks about Michaels ready to take on Power and Glory after his knee injury. Obviously, Michaels has been out with a knee injury for a while at this point. Jake is wearing a contact in one eye. Now, this is reference to where the model Rick Martel sprayed him with arrogance and blinded Jake the Snake in one eye. So we're getting to, like, this could have potentially been okay. We get to an awful match very soon. Yes. So the team is the Vipers, which is Jake the Snake, Jimmy Snuka, and the Rockers. They should have been called the Druggies. Versus
I liked it.
Versus, and this is the name I love, the Visionaries.
Yeah.
Right, so they're called the Visionaries because Jake has no eye left. Cracking. Hercules, Paul Roma, which was the Power and Glory, Rick Martel, and the Warlord with Slick. I think this match is more about Jake the Snake and Rick Martel at this point more than anything. Yeah. Warlord comes out in really rubbish Mad Max gear, so the legitimately looking Legion of Doom have entered. Yeah. And the rip-off looks even worse now. I think he had a scepter or something, and he's got sort of the two of them started to look awful. Yeah, he looked good in the ring, just rubbish gimmick.
Very odd.
Not sold very well, and it was the headpiece as well, a bit weird. You know,
anything with that, like the Minotaur years later, like any time you put a headpiece on a wrestler, it's got to be. And I've never seen one done well apart from Vader.
Vader
but then
are we talking about masks in general? Because you could say Mankind was awesome.
No, but like Vader's had this big kind of
the big piece that used to come out
the shoulder. Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah. But Triple H has done it well with the WrestleMania stuff.
Yeah, but like this is like every week.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
like I don't know. I mean, I think that. You know, masks are one thing, but like that was...
It was just like weird, it was just weird. He looked like that dude from Mortal Kombat, which is cool, but he didn't look cool because he was carrying a scepter around with him.
It was kind of pointless.
Yeah. Marty Jannetty starts off against Warlord. Fast action.
Jannetty.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Always good. But he couldn't get an advantage over Warlord, which was great. And then it was Michaels versus Martel with some high-flying moves. When Jake gets in, Martel quickly gets out of there. So we had a dynamic of Martel trying to avoid Jake all the time, which was good Survivor Series stuff. Snuka gets into the ring with Warlord. Snuka was quite old at this point, you know. He's like 47.
Yeah, he didn't look his age. I thought he looked well.
His body looked great, yeah. all them drugs.
All them drugs. We are not an advert for drug taking or drug abuse. We just like to joke about it occasionally.
We do.
Neither of us are on drugs, even though you might think differently.
Yeah, we see Snooker here wrestling with a lot more accuracy than he has done in previous pay-per-views. I've talked a lot about how I thought he was quite sloppy at certain points.
He had some incredible showings, but very inconsistent.
He was, yeah. And this was a good showing for him as well. After a big slam from Warlord, Marty Jannetty is out. Warlord, they really tried to sell in this match. A lot of big moves, putting people down for near falls. He felt like the biggest threat in the match. Yeah. Superfly goes for a running crossbody off the turnbuckle, but it's reversed by Martel when he grabs a handful of tights. My only problem with this is we've just seen this happen with DiBiase and Bret Hart. Like,
yeah,
you add in the.
They like to recycle things, don't they? But like quickly, I was like,
straight away after the last match, it's a bit too quick.
I'm pretty sure we've seen that be in the 80s. You know, we've seen that in the 80s a couple of times.
Oh, loads, man, loads of crossbody reverses.
Some of our pay-per-views have got the same move. Like, from match
but
to
this was exactly, and that was a problem with one of the other pay-per-views that we watched recently, where it was the same finish all the time, and it was just annoying. Hercules comes into the ring with Michaels, and the action and story slowed down for a bit, which was really disappointing. Hercules was just too slow for me, man, in the match, and he didn't have the power that Warlord had in it, which I was. Yeah, I know you like.
I like Hercules, man. I mean, I loved him as a face. I thought it was a good face, but he's heel now, and just again never got never got the support of the show that he needed, I think. And
then a powerplex from Power and Glory takes out Shawn Michaels. I do like that as a tag finisher, though, for Power and Glory. So one of them does a suplex, the other one jumps off the top rope for a big splash.
I've seen it used again. It's been used.
It'll be used all the time, It's
been used again. I think, oddly, Lowdown did it really, really well, which was D'Lo Brown and Chaz from the Headbangers.
All right, cool.
In their kind of, they had a very short-lived and not very well-booked tag team, and Chaz would do the superplex.
Oh, right,
into D'Lo Brown's frog splash.
Oh, nice, man. Nice. Well, it makes sense. I mean, but it just looks good. It looks powerful. So that left just Jake versus everyone. We see Jake get beat up for a bit, and then he gets a DDT on the Warlord. But while the referee is distracted, Martel comes and sprays him with a bit more arrogance. Actually, it was funny. I think that's the point where I can't remember. Was it the bit where Piper goes something like, "Holy ass" or something, and then he like apologises for swearing or something like that?
Yeah, there is a moment.
I can't remember. I think it was that moment. I didn't write it down. Sorry, off the
holy ass,
holy ass, or whatever he says. So the DDT knocks Warlord out. Martel comes in, sprays him with arrogance. Jake gets Damien and runs after Martel, getting himself eliminated. So this is the first time in Survivor Series history that the full heel team, or the entire team in general, is all through to the final round. Not one member was eliminated. So good showing for the heel team. Not a great match, a bit sort of slow, but yeah. So next up we have a few interviews with the Hulkamaniacs. Hacksaw's decorated his 2x4 with bows. Do you think he was to sleep next to his hacksaw? Next to his hacksaw. Two before. Yeah, I think so. I think he did. Do you think what do you think its name was with all the bows on?
Oh, I'm not sure, mate. I wouldn't like to put myself in that situation to even imagine that.
Hulk says with Bossman on his team, law and order will be upheld, and Hulk dedicates the match to the servicemen in the Middle East. Saddam Hussein, what you gonna do when the Hulkamaniacs go wild on you, brother? Thanks. So the team is the Hulkamaniacs, Hulk Hogan, the Big Boss Man, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and Tugboat, and they are versing the Natural Disasters, which was Earthquake, the Barbarian, Dino Bravo, and Haku. Haku was a last-minute replacement. It was supposed to be Rick Rude, but Rick Rude had left the WWF at this point, even though storyline-wise that hadn't come about yet. I can't remember. It was some rubbish storyline-wise. So this is the first time we've got Tugboat on, so I'll talk about him for a little bit. Tugboat, or Fred Ottoman.
Terrible name, by the way.
What, Fred Ottoman?
Tugboat.
Are you having a go about what his mum and dad called him?
I'm having a go at
Tugboat. That's really out of order.
I'm having a go at Tugboat. You're out of order.
I don't like your name.
Tugboat.
I think it's bland and only 2 syllables. Dom Smith. I'm gonna.
What? I'm talking about fucking Tugboat, you dickhead.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it's a crap name. So they were doing this whole toot toot gimmick with him, which was he'd go toot toot, and the audience will go toot toot. Yay, wrestling. Fred Ottoman, the man behind Typhoon, who he'd later become, and possibly more notable, the Shockmaster.
Yeah, in WCW.
Yeah. He was trained by Boris Malenko, which was the father of Dean Malenko later on. He came to WWF in 1989, and this was probably the biggest pay-per-view that Tugboat, as the character, would be a part of, before joining the Natural Disasters. So he was actually versus one of the other Natural Disasters, so it was Tugboat and Earthquake. They were a good tag team, Natural Disasters. I enjoyed them.
You have voiced your approval
I
for
approve.
this team numerous times.
He did also get a shot against Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental Championship in 1991 as Tugboat. Toot toot.
I'm not doing it.
Why? You'll go oh, but you won't go toot toot. Directly after Survivor Series, he'd work a lot with The Undertaker, actually. Although it was a short-lived feud, obviously it was a way for Undertaker to go over someone that didn't really matter that much. Tugboat would eventually turn heel by attacking Hulk Hogan, and during a 6-man tag match, would turn on the Bushwhackers to side with Earthquake. And then we get the Earthquake and the Natural Disasters, who were good.
They were good.
And then also, they were good. Statement. They were good. And then, obviously, one of the most iconic introductions in wrestling was when he was the Shockmaster. If you haven't seen this, you need to go to YouTube to watch it. It's pretty all over the place. Basically, his gimmick was he had a Stormtrooper helmet on that was done in glitter. And the idea was that he was to crash through this wall and start threatening Sid Vicious. And I think possibly Ric Flair. And as he comes out the wall, somebody had put a piece of timber at the bottom of the wall, which he didn't know about. The poor lad, in his big introduction, comes out and he falls over the piece of timber. His hat comes off. He stumbles about and puts it on. And then he goes, puts it back on, and goes and threatens everyone, and everyone's pissing themselves a little bit like Dom is right now. No one can take it serious. It's one of the best introductions. Are you enjoying that? Did you enjoy that?
I've got the visual, man. Just that just...
Whoa, when his hat rolls off.
Yeah, he's like... I'm
the Shockmaster. And did you know that he's the brother-in-law of Dusty Rhodes? We're going to take a break and come back in a second.
All right, I'm back. I'm ready.
Are you ready to go now? We just rewatched the Shockmaster video.
Yeah, I'm post the terrible. I am the Shockmaster.
We've actually tried to film this segment once a second ago, and Dom just couldn't stop laughing.
I keep reliving it in my head, especially when Sting's like the Shockmaster, and it's taken so seriously, and all the Titantron, and then he just explains. And he tries to get back up, and he gets back up into the voice and the glittery helmet, which is basically
perfect.
they've just
Stormtrooper. Yeah. It's great. So the Barbarian comes into the ring first in this match. In deer felt, deer horns. He looks like something from The Revenant.
Yeah.
He looks awful, man.
Super over the top.
Super over the top, super cartoon era coming up.
Yeah.
Bossman looked fired up in the match. Bossman did a really good job of being a face at this point.
Oh man, I loved his work as a face, and I wish like I said this when I mentioned his character the first time. Like, I wish he'd have done a face run. There was a tease in his later career, you know, when the whole corporation, the whole corporation thing. I'm just blowing like air bubbles.
Air bubbles, I know.
Because I'm so like, I've just been laughing this whole time. That corporation tease where he quit the corporation. I would have loved to have seen a face. Boss man,
yeah, I mean, the problem
that
is...
the heel work with the Big Show, evil stuff.
Yeah, well, there's a nice reference to this, because Rude was kicked off of the match, something to do with calling out Bossman's mum or something like that, which again brings back relevance to the whole Big Show taking his dad thing. You know, maybe it was just an issue that Bossman had brewing up from this time. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe I'm just overthinking it way too much.
Probably.
Definitely. I think the problem with Bossman is he couldn't carry on as a face because he had Hogan and Warrior.
Yeah.
And it's too crammed, you know? Yeah. Hacksaw... so Hogan got a really good reaction in this pay-per-view, even better than usual for Hogan. Hacksaw starts off the match against Haku. Haku didn't get a...
Excuse me.
You're all right.
I'm just recovering.
Haku
I'm
didn't
recovering
get...
from the shock.
Master. Boom.
The Shockmaster.
Hacksaw starts off against Haku. Haku didn't get a chance to apply his offensive whatsoever. It was all about Hacksaw's clothesline, and it's a shame because we know that Haku is a good performer.
Oh, man.
And he didn't get a chance in this match.
Incidentally, we put him in our top
10
most
underrated wrestlers, but don't spoil that list. If you want to go watch that list, find it on our channel. Yeah, and it was a real shame that he didn't get to do much in this match. It was all about Hacksaw's clothesline. At least when the boss man comes in, he gets to show the Bossmaster. Yeah, I know. He gets to show off his style a bit. Heenan is caught by Bossman in the apron and gets his head rammed into the turnbuckle. A busy night for Heenan again, taking bumps left, right and centre, even though there was other managers that didn't take any bumps this pay-per-view. Jimmy Hart pulls down the ropes for Hacksaw to end up on the floor. He chases Hart and picks up his 2x4 and starts swinging it around everywhere.
I love it when you say 2x4. We need to get some t-shirts done with just 2x4. Like
2x4. Is there a way we can put Hull in that? Let us know.
Work it out.
So he chases Hart and picks up his 2x4, swinging it around, ends up accidentally, on purpose, hitting Earthquake, and then hitting Earthquake again and gets himself disqualified. Hulk comes in to face Earthquake, and the first thing he does to Earthquake is slams him. I mean, how can you have
destroy a beast?
Yeah. That's the problem with Hulk facing Earthquake. It completely destroys Earthquake.
Yeah.
Earthquake could have had a great singles run if he'd carried on.
Yeah, totally. It could have been that days. I mean, obviously, you know, a guy like Lesnar these days has the physique and everything, but like there wasn't a dominating heel in the same way that Lesnar is
big
now.
Heel.
Back in the day, you know, you didn't have one of those kind of, you know, I would have put Zeus in that position, but you
no way, man. I mean, you've got the big heel in Slaughter coming up.
Yeah, but nothing
was
so physically dominating. You know what I mean?
No.
Whereas, you know,
Slaughter was dominating. Slaughter was tall and big. No? Okay, he was awful. Hulk rolls Dino Bravo into a small package before he gets a chance to do anything in the match. Yeah. Dino Bravo. Become a real big player in WWF, hasn't he? There's a nice moment where Earthquake catches Bossman off the turnbuckle, but Hogan pushes him through, leading to a pin attempt from Bossman. Yeah, Bossman wasn't a light guy, so it was the catch was showing him how strong he was. Yeah, actually, as a big guy as well. So then we get Tugboat against Earthquake, or Shockmaster against Earthquake.
Dumb.
Yeah, the crowd sound like they were booing at this point.
Yeah,
I don't think they were booing. I think they were tooting. Boo boo. It's a bit too similar to a boo, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have a face that goes in and gets boo.
No. Yeah, it's very short.
Can I get one toot before the end of the boop boop?
No.
Okay. So both men end up being counted out, so we see the two big guys both out, and then Barbarian versus Hogan are the only two left. Barbarian delivers a very, very, very safe pile driver to Hogan. You could see that Hogan's head was well above his legs as he come down. You don't want to hurt the top face in the company.
The franchise, the main player.
Yeah, it'll affect his career. It didn't really affect his career because his career didn't really go anywhere, did it?
Nope.
then we get the Hulk up moment, the big boot, the leg drop, done. Hulk was the last man standing, throws him in over the top rope. Hunan gets sort of hung up mid-balance before taking a hard bump to the floor. Standard Hogan ending. Yeah. Then we have an interview with Macho Man, who looks awesome in a white and red, like almost like a candy.
I'm convinced you've got a man crush.
I do have a man crush on Macho and the Gobbledygooker. So Macho comes out and he says that the Ultimate Warrior is going to be the ultimate turkey when I take that title back. Sensational Queen Sherry insulted the Ultimate Warrior during a Brother Love segment, and he talks about his retirement after he proves he is the best. Yeah, it's sad that there was talking about him retirement already when he had so long to go, and like so many years. And it sounded actually that this is the only time we see Macho. Why wasn't he put in a match, man? Yeah, you know, should have been in a match. Like there we go, the match Demolition. Insert Macho into that, and suddenly you've actually got a decent lineup. 2 from Demolition, perfect, and Macho versus Warrior, perfect, and the Legion of Doom, perfect. So the next match is sort of a quick naff match, really, but a lot to talk about. The Alliance, which was Bush and Luke Bushwhacker, Nikolai Volkov, who is the face of America now, Tito Santana versus the Mercenaries, Boris Zukov, Sergeant Slaughter, Orient Express, Sato and Tanaka, with Mr. Fuji and General Adnan. So, Sergeant Slaughter, you want to talk a little bit about him?
What?
I thought you were doing research on Sergeant Slaughter.
Dude, we've done Slaughter already.
Have we?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
You've done this twice now. We've done Slaughter. Are you doing this on purpose?
No, I don't think so. I didn't think we've done Slaughter.
My next one, unfortunately, is the Gobbledygooker.
I think I've missed out doing Slaughter. We'll have to do him in the next one. I don't think we have done Slaughter.
We have done Slaughter.
We haven't. We might have done Slaughter in the last one. I think we did. Anyway, as Slaughter goes out, Mean Gene goes for a quick interview. Says the pay-per-view is being shown to the armed forces.
I definitely did Slaughter. I remember visibly researching Slaughter. Right, I have done him.
I don't know why I'm at it. Sorry.
He is done.
He is done.
He is done.
Well, this is his first sort of match in the ring, isn't it? We might have done him last pay-per-view, but anyway, you will have done him. Yeah, that's fine.
We've done him.
And if not, he's on the history.
No, we've done him.
Yeah, we have, yeah. Sorry.
I'm telling you.
Sorry.
Maggot.
Says the pay-per-view has been shown to the armed forces. Sergeant Slaughter salutes one flag. The flag of the Iraqi nation. I hated Slaughter's promos. It's too slow, man. This is where America... No, that's me talking.
It's got to be really gruff. This.
Yeah, I don't like it. This is when America was at war with the Middle East and was saluting the enemy. He goes on to talk about how he enjoyed Thanksgiving dinner without any sand in it. Unlike the troops across there. Yeah, man. I mean, it's horrific for the troops at Saudi Arabia at the time. And the Iraqi army takes no prisoners. Bad. We talked about this in the last episode. This was an awful promo, an awful... You're right, WWF would never, ever get away with it nowadays.
Oh, no.
No. Terrible. So, Boris Zukov is out early from a flying forearm from Tito. This match is a bit weird. I don't really know why it was here. Bushwhackers take out one of the Orient Express, quickly followed by Tito taking out the other. I didn't understand what the point of the Bushwhackers was in this match. It wasn't shocking, it was just boring.
Shocking.
Slaughter versus Volkov, Bushwhackers, and Tito.
And then Tito gets, Tito... Nice to see Tito do
Sorry,
alright.
Bushwhackers take out Orient Express, is that what I said? Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
It's nice to see Tito do alright.
Yeah, Tito did okay. And he did some good stuff in the ring as well.
For once.
Even though he was up against a really awful wrestler. I hated this wrestler in this match. It's one of the first times we've seen Slaughter in these pay-per-views, and he is so goddamn slow at this point. He was great before. He was like murderously slow. So it's Slaughter versus Nikolai Volkov, Bushwhackers, and Tito. Slaughter takes out Volkov with a very slow elbow. Quickly pins both Bushwhackers. Really, really slow. Really boring. I mean, this is a terrible match.
Slaughter's had some alright matches. This This was his.
What are we talking about? This run, or are we
worst.
talking about like his early 80s run? Because his early 80s stuff was okay.
80s run, yeah.
But this stuff is just, he's so slow. He can't keep up, man. And the problem is when it's Tito versus Slaughter towards the end, Tito is capable of getting up to the turnbuckle really quick. He's stood there and he's waiting for Slaughter to sort of slow motionally get up, and it just don't work. Slaughter can't keep up with Tito. Even the drop kick had floor Slaughter for like half a minute, and even Gorilla said during the match Tito looked in way better shape. Like, true, man. And this is the guy. The other guy that's not in very good shape, we're going to get him to go against Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania, and we're going to sell a WrestleMania on the slowest wrestler.
But I think that worked on the gimmick. That worked on the
The gimmick was too much.
It worked on that. That's how it worked. That's how it worked. Otherwise, it wouldn't have done.
Tito's pushed into the referee by Slaughter. General Adnan comes into the ring at this point and hits Tito with his flag on the small of his back. Sergeant Slaughter gets Tito into the camel clutch, and the ref comes over and rings the bell. Slaughter's been disqualified for Adnan getting involved, so it was sort of fine. If Trump was there, if Donald Trump was there, as he's been at a couple of the earlier pay-per-views, how happy do you think Donald Trump would be about the Mexican prevailing over the Iraqi sympathizer?
No. Honestly.
That'd have caused him great conflict in his soul. Boring match. Thanks very much, Sergeant Slaughter. That was awful. So then we had an interview with the previous winning team from the heels. The $1 Million Man talks about the bad blood between Warrior and Hulk and how they're going to take advantage of it, and they won't win because of it. Mean Gene talks about the heat from the crowd. Heat from the crowd is helping to incubate the egg. Even Mean Gene seemed to know how daft all this was. As soon as it hatches and the Gobbledygooker gets out, the crowd start booing.
Yeah.
Never would have expected that reaction.
They expected more, and they expected maybe an Undertaker. Yeah, anything would have been better. Even an Undertaker from an egg would have been better.
That was nearly the idea, though, wasn't it? Have you done some research on Gobbledygooker?
Yeah. So the Gooker. Basically, it was Hector Guerrero, which is the brother of Eddie. There's not a great deal in terms of arrests. I mean, obviously, Hector Guerrero had a 45-year strong wrestling career, wrestling on a bunch of different organisations. Nothing wonderful in terms of world championships. But the Gooker gimmick. After this, they dropped it for about a decade. And they bought it back. It was bought back for a gimmick battle royal a couple of times. Okay. It was bought back by the New Day. Yeah. It's been bought back by Xavier Woods. But yeah, Hector is an interesting one because obviously part of the Guerrero family, and he was chosen to don the Gooker suit, which would suggest because in the 80s Hector was doing all right.
He was a talented guy.
Yeah. And there's a lot in my research. A lot of wrestling writers theorise that at least at this point they may have had more in mind for the gimmick because of who they put behind it. But I think, they realised...
They didn't just put a guy in a suit, they put a wrestler in a suit.
I think they realised pretty much as soon as the yolk had spilt, the egg had hatched, etc., that it wasn't going to work. And Hector the gimmick was doomed almost instantaneously. Hector himself, in the late 80s, he wrestled for the AWA, which we've talked about before, American Wrestling Association. He won those companies' tag team titles with a Dr. D. In the early 90s, he actually had a very brief stint in all these kind of major organisations. He had a brief stint in ECW, where he challenged Too Cold Scorpio to a match for the television title and lost. He also had a singles match with his brother Eddie in WCW in '96, where he had a problem with Eddie Guerrero's kind of outlandish persona on TV. Eddie Guerrero was kind of being quite rebellious, and his gimmick was then, well, just a bit really kind of outlaw, and Hector comes onto TV to face him and then loses. From 2007 to 2015, his most notable and regular mainstream television stint came with TNA as he managed LAX, or the Latin American
What year
Exchange,
was this in?
2007 through till 2015. He was also the colour commentator, the Spanish colour commentator. He was awarded, given that he had 45 years of solid experience in the industry, he was awarded a couple of awards during this period of time as well for service to the industry.
Right.
So, yeah, you would have thought that Hector would have had more of a, they would have had more of a plan with regards to the Gooker.
I think
gimmick.
they did have a plan. It just didn't.
Just didn't hatch.
Well, it didn't. Hey, good pun. I like it.
Yeah,
my partner, we was watching it at the time, and she came up with a good pun. She turned to me and she said, "What the hull is going on?"
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, she's getting into it.
So one of wrestling's greatest mysteries. Why wasn't the Gobbledygooker a bigger gimmick? And why?
He was a future tag team champion with the Red Rooster.
Why did? You're not even funny. You're shocking.
But it is true, right? You've got Terry Taylor, who was an incredible wrestler, and you don him with the Red Rooster gimmick that was shit, right?
But it wasn't
and then
shit.
It was shit. And then you move on and you think, oh, right, okay, this gimmick is really going over. KFC is doing really well out of us. We'll have the Gobbledygooker. Can you imagine if they were a tag team?
That would have made money. It would have done really well.
Nowadays it would.
Yeah.
Nowadays it'd be like the New Day. And then people would have hated it. So yeah. Anyway,
dear.
go on.
Yeah. So
is that?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. He actually.
It's interesting that they had such a talent in this awful gimmick.
Now he has his own he has his own pro wrestling consulting company.
Does he? So it's not like a wrestling school. It's
it's like advice and support for wrestlers in the industry.
Cool. So about this segment, it is a long segment. It's interesting to watch in terms of the dismal thing.
It's cringeworthy, Anthony.
It's interesting to watch in terms of how crap it is. Mean Gene tries to interview him, but I'm the Shockmaster.
Don't do it.
That's his pay-per-view in sounds.
God.
So he goes into the ring and starts dancing. Piper at this point says, "Oh, the kids are going mental for him," and it cuts to shots of the crowd where there's like 2 members out of 50 people dancing. Everyone else are just going, "What the hell?" and booing. So yeah, Mean Gene starts dancing. The Gooker will do something, and Mean Gene will try and imitate it. So because Guerrero was a talent in the ring in terms of he could do stuff, he could do backflips, and Mean Gene would just do a roly-poly or whatever it was.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, is this where the New Day gimmick stems from?
I would imagine they've taken some inspiration from it.
Gobbledygooker continues to roll around the ring with Mean Gene copying him. Wow, what a build-up. What a build-up for this. Mean Gene runs the ropes trying to copy the Gobbledygooker, and there was I think Mean Gene, I don't know why they got him to do this. He ran into the ropes and he got his back foot caught on the back rope and just fell over. Excellent. Then we have an interview with Warrior, Hogan and Tito. Hulk praises the Warrior. Warrior's face paint has been reapplied at this point, and Tito can't get into the shot because Warrior is just taking the camera. So the winners from the previous matches versus the heel winners from the other matches, making the Ultimate Survivor match.
Yes.
So we have Hercules, Paul Roma, Rick Martel, Ted DiBiase and the Warlord with Slick and Virgil versus Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior and Tito Santana. The odds are against the faces here. Oh no, they're not. It's Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior. Right, so match. Tito, flying elbows, Warlord. This is quite a quick match, actually, considering you've got so many people in it. It's only like 10 minutes. Tito, flying elbows, Warlord for a 3 count straight away. DiBiase and Tito get in the ring. This is the point which is the closest to wrestling that we're going to see in this match, and it was quite good. Tito and DiBiase, good workers. Yeah. Good.
Nice
Ted DiBiase hangs Tito on the top rope and then gets him into a pin for a 3 count. Hogan
they call that a hot shot.
A hot shot, is that what they call it?
Yeah, the hang shot.
Ah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool, thank
I'll
you.
show you when I do. You're
gonna hang me in the ropes later on.
I'm gonna do it on 2K18. I'm gonna hot shot you.
Awesome, can't wait. Hogan stays in the match for ages at this point, doing nothing in the short match. He just gets beat up by the Hulk. Yeah, he gets beat up by the heel team a lot. Hercules and Paul Roma get the Power and Glory. They get their tag team finisher, 2-man finisher, more devastating than one finisher. No, not to Hulk Hogan, who kicks out. And what a way to kill a tag team that didn't have much momentum, but like... Anyway,
what a
Hogan,
fucking disaster.
Hogan. Clothesline, and then he gets a pin on Paul Roma, because that's a devastating move. Warrior versus Martel. The Warrior tags out for some reason. I don't really understand, because Warrior
he fears the arrogance.
Does he?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't. But like Hulk had been in the ring for ages anyway. Warrior had only just come in. I just don't get it. Hulk throws Martel out the ring, and he leaves as he knew his team would defeat Warrior and Hulk. He knew that his team would get defeated. Sorry, by Warrior and Hulk. Or he knew the booking decision. One might say it was just poor.
Very clever heel move though.
What, walking away?
Yeah. I love when you do that. I love it. Hey, honestly, trust me, it'll happen this weekend. Survivor Series coming up. I guarantee.
I don't mind it. I don't.
Samoa
when
Joe.
It's done right.
Samoa
It's just
Joe.
this match was supposed to be about the Ultimate. This was more than just a team. This was about him being. This was about the one person or the two people that was the Ultimate Survivor.
I'm calling it. Samoa Joe this weekend.
Possibly. Let's wait and find out. When DiBiase gets in against Hulk, we finally get someone who we can sell with, and the match becomes more entertaining. That's how good DiBiase was. I'm constantly talking about his praises, but I'll quite happily point them out when it is good. Hulk gets a 3 count on DiBiase. Warrior tagged in to finish Hercules. And then, so he does his probably splash. I didn't even write it down. Just Warrior, the Warrior ending. To finish Hercules, Hulk comes in to count the pin with Earl Ebner. 1, 2, 3, and we've got our 2 winners. But a waste of time. It felt like it didn't. It felt much longer than the 10 minutes it was on, and there was no real stories happening at all. So, match of the night, Dom. Would you like to hear mine, or would you like to go first?
You go first.
Easily, the $1 Million Team versus Dusty Rhodes Team.
Same.
Great showing by Bret Hart, DiBiase.
Undertaker.
And the debut of The Undertaker, man, is a really interesting thing to go watch. Yep. How many stars would you give this?
2.
Yeah, I'd say 2. Mainly because of the Undertaker match. I think that was actually worth watching. Enjoyable to watch.
All the wrestlers I normally applaud, the Jake the Snakes, and normally I'd even get behind Tito. Well, actually no, I was quite behind Tito's performance this time. But like normally the wrestlers that I get behind had quite a poor showing these days.
Not using Macho.
Bossman, like I say, Bossman was good, but he wasn't great.
No.
There's a lot of slower performances this time around.
I think we both enjoyed, especially the booking in the '89 Survivor Series.
And I liked, on an angle, I really liked that Martel left. From an angle perspective, again, because it builds you as a heel, it builds you as a proper heel. But just nothing too exciting except for Undertaker's debut. Yeah, really for us, or for me anyway.
And what about Jake in the shower? Did you enjoy that?
Well, clearly you enjoyed it, so,
Thank you very much for watching. And, please like our social media sites. We're on Facebook and Twitter and
Gimme a Hull,
Tumblr.
We're on for, stuff. And you can,
have you not been keeping that one up to date?
No, I need to do that. You can find us on Redbubble if you want to buy T-shirts, mugs,
clocks. Because your time is running out.
Yeah, you can get a clock, you can get a bag, you can get anything on. But mainly Patreon. Please give us your money. No, or we'll shock you. We'll shock you. I'm the Shockmaster. Cool. And I'm coming to get you. That's a little boogeyman.
I'm the Shockmaster.
We're gonna post that on the Facebook page. So just in case for some reason you've not seen it, I'll post it on the Facebook page now. All right. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon. Keep it gay.